In the heart of the mountains and nestled beside fertile farmland, there was a peaceful village that thrived on the blessings of nature. The crops were always lush, and the people lived harmoniously, working together to make the most of the land's bounty. Overlooking this serene village was the royal palace where King James ruled wisely, admired by his subjects for his fairness. Among the villagers, there was a sense of community, but there was one figure who stood apart despite her royal lineage, Adanna, the eldest daughter of King James. Adanna was not an ordinary princess. From a young age, it was clear she would be different. Unlike other children, Adanna grew rapidly, her muscles swelling and her stature towering over her peers. While her heart was kind, her physical appearance made her a source of fear and whispers among the villagers. Mothers hurried their children away from her, and potential suitors avoided her with terrified glances. Despite her royal birth, Adanna felt cursed, her body setting her apart from the very people she longed to serve and protect. Adanna's unusual size was not by choice. From birth, she suffered from a mysterious condition that caused her to grow at an extraordinary rate. By the time she reached her teenage years, she was not just tall but had the physique of a warrior, a far cry from the delicate and graceful figure that villagers expected from a princess. Her father, King James, watched his daughter's development with a heavy heart. While he adored her, he knew that Adanna's appearance complicated her future, especially as his eldest heir. King James had no sons, only Adanna and her younger sister, Precious. Traditionally, the throne would pass to the firstborn, but Adanna's condition made this succession difficult. It was crucial for Adanna to marry and produce a male heir, securing the throne for future generations. Yet, no suitor dared approach her. The pressure weighed heavily on Adanna, her loneliness growing with each passing year. Though she remained kind and gentle, serving her people as best as she could, the rejection gnawed at her spirit. While the villagers feared her, Adanna found comfort in solitude. She often retreated to the nearby forest, a place where she could escape the stares and whispers of the village. The forest became her refuge, a sanctuary where she could be herself without judgment. Among the towering trees and gentle rustle of leaves, she felt a strange connection to nature that calmed her restless heart. Adanna would spend hours alone in the wilderness, sometimes crying out her frustrations where no one could hear her. On one such day, while wandering through the dense undergrowth, Adanna heard something unusual. A desperate voice called out for help, its cry cutting through the serenity of the forest. Startled, Adanna listened carefully, following the sound until she stumbled upon a scene she hadn't expected. Beneath a fallen tree, the man lay trapped, struggling to free himself. Without hesitation, Adanna rushed to his side. With her immense strength, she lifted the tree with ease, allowing the man to scramble free, his life saved by the very woman the villagers feared. The man Adanna saved was not from her village. He was a hunter, his clothes marked with the stains of the wilderness and his face weathered by the sun. As Adanna helped him to his feet, the hunter introduced himself as Emeka, son of Nnobi, and a skilled tracker from a neighboring village. He was short but handsome, his features sharp and confident, unlike the other men who cowered in Adanna's presence. With a laugh, he explained how he had been chasing an antelope when the tree fell on him, nearly costing him his life. Emeka expressed his gratitude to Adanna, marveling at her strength. "Thank you, princess," he said, recognizing her immediately. "I owe you my life." Adanna, unused to such direct praise, felt herself blush. Unlike the men in her village, Emeka didn't seem frightened of her. Instead, he appeared genuinely impressed, not just by her size but by her courage. As they spoke, an unexpected connection began to form between them. For the first time, Adanna felt like she wasn't just a monster in someone's eyes but a woman worthy of respect. From that day on, Adanna and Emeka met regularly in the forest. What had begun as a chance encounter quickly turned into a deep friendship. Emeka was different from anyone Adanna had ever known. He wasn't intimidated by her size, nor did he mock her for it. Instead, he admired her strength, both physical and emotional. Adanna, in turn, found Emeka's confidence and humor refreshing. Unlike the villagers who feared her, Emeka treated her like a normal person, and it was a relief to Adanna. As the days passed, their bond grew stronger. Emeka shared stories of his hunting expeditions, while Adanna confided in him about the struggles she faced as the princess. Emeka often reassured her, telling her how beautiful she was in his eyes. For the first time, Adanna began to see herself in a new light. Could it be that someone as kind and noble as Emeka truly saw her for who she was, beyond her imposing appearance? The thought both thrilled and frightened her. While Adanna found solace in her new friendship with Emeka, her younger sister, Precious, watched from the shadows with growing jealousy. Precious had always been the more traditionally beautiful sister, with delicate features that attracted many suitors. She enjoyed the attention she received, flaunting her beauty and her many suitors in front of Adanna. However, she also harbored deep resentment. In her eyes, it was unfair that Adanna, the older and less attractive sister, was destined to inherit the throne simply because of birth order. When Precious noticed the change in Adanna's demeanor after meeting Emeka, her envy intensified. Adanna's newfound happiness threatened her long-held belief that her sister was doomed to a life of loneliness. Precious couldn't stand the idea of Adanna finding love, especially with a man like Emeka, who was everything she desired in a partner: brave, strong, and unafraid of Adanna's intimidating presence. Determined not to let her sister's joy last, Precious began to plot ways to undermine their relationship. Meanwhile, King James became increasingly worried about Adanna's future. He had noticed a change in his daughter; she seemed happier, more at ease. Though he was relieved to see her smiling, he couldn't ignore the growing pressure from his advisors. They reminded him constantly that Adanna needed to marry soon to secure the throne. Without a male heir, the kingdom would be left vulnerable, and potential suitors for Adanna were nowhere to be found. King James knew that time was running out. One evening, as Adanna returned from the forest, King James summoned her to his chambers. "My daughter," he said, "I see that you've been spending more time outside the palace. Is there something you wish to tell me?" Adanna hesitated, unsure of how to explain her growing feelings for Emeka. She wasn't sure if her father would approve of a hunter, no matter how noble Emeka seemed. But King James pressed her, sensing there was more to her recent outings than just a love for nature. Adanna finally confessed to her father about her friendship with Emeka, carefully leaving out the depth of her feelings. She described him as a kind and brave man, someone who had saved her from her loneliness. King James listened intently but expressed concern. "A hunter, you say?" he asked. "My daughter, you are a princess. Your marriage is not just about love but about securing the future of our kingdom." Though he didn't forbid her from seeing Emeka, his words weighed heavily on Adanna's heart. After their conversation, Adanna couldn't help but wonder if her father was right. Could she really afford to fall in love with Emeka, knowing the expectations placed upon her as the future queen? The kingdom needed a strong heir, and Emeka, as noble as he was, didn't fit the image of a royal consort. Yet, when she thought about walking away from him, the pain in her chest was unbearable. For the first time in her life, Adanna was torn between her duty to her family and her desire for happiness. As Adanna grappled with her feelings, trouble began brewing in the kingdom. Rumors spread among the villagers about the princess's growing closeness with Emeka. Some whispered that she was unfit to rule, citing her size and unusual appearance. Others questioned whether she could ever produce a male heir, further fueling the gossip. Precious, who secretly encouraged these rumors, watched with satisfaction as the villagers' respect for Adanna began to wane. The more unrest Precious could sow, the easier it would be to take her sister's place. King James, though unaware of Precious's schemes, noticed the shift in the air. He knew that his kingdom was vulnerable and that the people's faith in their royal family was crucial to maintaining peace. With Adanna's reputation at stake, he became increasingly anxious. Yet, he was torn. He didn't want to pressure his daughter into a marriage she didn't want, but he also couldn't ignore the kingdom's need for stability. As tensions grew, King James found himself at a crossroads. In the days that followed, Precious took more drastic steps to ensure her place as the future ruler. She began secretly meeting with members of the royal court, planting seeds of doubt about Adanna's ability to lead. Precious portrayed herself as the more capable and desirable heir, subtly hinting that the kingdom would be better off if she, and not Adanna, were next in line for the throne. Though many of the courtiers remained loyal to King James, a few began to listen to Precious's poisonous words. One evening, while Adanna was with Emeka in the forest, Precious confronted her father. She carefully crafted her words, expressing concern for the kingdom's future. "Father," she said sweetly, "I worry for our people. Adanna is so consumed by her time in the forest, but I fear it's distracting her from her duties. Shouldn't we consider the possibility that, perhaps I might be better suited to inherit the throne?" King James, caught off guard by his daughter's suggestion, remained silent, his mind clouded with doubt. King James stared at Precious, his mind swelling with confusion. He had always believed that Adanna, despite her condition, would be the one to inherit the throne. After all, it was tradition for the eldest to rule. But as Precious continued speaking, gently pointing out the villagers' growing discomfort with Adanna's appearance and her lack of suitors, King James couldn't help but feel the weight of her words. Could his kingdom truly thrive with Adanna at its helm? Precious saw the hesitation in her father's eyes and pressed further. "Father, you know I have always been loyal to you and the kingdom. I am loved by the people, and I have many suitors who would gladly strengthen our lineage. I could secure a marriage that would bring alliances and stability. Adanna, well, I fear she's too distant, too different." King James frowned, torn between his love for his eldest daughter and the growing pressure to ensure the future of his kingdom. Meanwhile, in the forest, Adanna and Emeka sat together under the stars, their bond growing stronger with each passing day. For the first time in her life, Adanna felt seen, not as the giant, muscular princess that everyone feared, but as a woman worthy of love and companionship. As they talked, Adanna confessed her deepest fears to Emeka, her fear of being a disappointment to her father, her worry about never being accepted by the villagers, and her anxiety about the future. Emeka listened intently, his heart aching for her. "Adanna, you are not a disappointment. You are stronger than anyone I've ever met, both in body and spirit. If the people cannot see that, it is their loss, not yours. And as for your future, you don't have to face it alone. I'll be by your side, no matter what." Adanna smiled through her tears, grateful for Emeka's unwavering support. But in the back of her mind, she couldn't shake the feeling that something was brewing back at the palace. Unbeknownst to Adanna, Precious had continued to manipulate key figures within the royal court. Slowly but surely, she had garnered support from those who were either fearful of Adanna's condition or saw an opportunity to rise in power by aligning themselves with Precious. They whispered in dark corners about how Adanna was unfit to rule and that the kingdom needed a queen who could secure powerful alliances through marriage. One of the most influential members of the court, Lord Emeka, approached King James with a proposal. "Your Majesty, we must consider the future of our kingdom. Princess Adanna has no suitors, and the villagers are growing uneasy. Princess Precious, on the other hand, is beautiful and beloved by the people. She could secure a strong alliance through marriage. Perhaps, we should reconsider the line of succession." King James's heart sank as the voices around him began to echo Precious's words, casting doubt on Adanna's ability to rule. After several sleepless nights, King James made a difficult decision. He called a meeting of his most trusted advisors and the royal family. Adanna, unaware of the growing conspiracy against her, arrived at the palace, eager to see her father. She noticed Precious standing smugly by his side but thought little of it. As the court gathered, King James cleared his throat and addressed them with a heavy heart. "My people, my family," King James began, "as you know, it is customary for the eldest child to inherit the throne. However, in light of recent concerns, I have decided to delay the official naming of my successor until further consideration." The room fell silent. Adanna's heart raced as she realized what this meant. Her father was questioning her right to the throne. Precious, on the other hand, smirked, knowing that her manipulation had worked. Adanna stood frozen, her father's words ringing in her ears. This was the man who had always supported her, who had promised her that despite her condition, she would one day rule the kingdom. Now, he was hesitating. Was it because of the rumors? Because of her appearance? Adanna felt a deep sense of betrayal, not just from her father but from the people she had spent her life serving. They saw her as a monster, unworthy of the crown. After the meeting, Adanna stormed out of the palace, her heart heavy with anger and hurt. Emeka, who had been waiting for her outside, saw the pain in her eyes. "Adanna, what happened?" he asked, reaching for her hand. Adanna pulled away, tears streaming down her face. "My father, he doesn't believe in me anymore. He's questioning whether I'm fit to rule." Emeka tried to comfort her, but Adanna's sadness was too overwhelming. She felt as if her entire world was crumbling. While Adanna struggled with the weight of her father's decision, Precious was already planning her next move. She knew that delaying the naming of a successor was only the first step. To secure the throne for herself, she needed to eliminate Adanna as a threat entirely. But how? Precious knew that her sister was beloved by King James despite his hesitation. She would need to devise a plan that would turn even her father against Adanna. That night, Precious met with a dark figure in the shadows of the palace. It was Elizabeth, her trusted confidant and someone with deep connections to the most dangerous people in the neighboring kingdoms. "Elizabeth, I need your help," Precious whispered. "I need to make sure Adanna never ascends to the throne. But I can't do it alone." Elizabeth smirked, knowing exactly what Precious had in mind. "Leave it to me, my lady. I know just the people who can take care of your sister." Back in the forest, Emeka had grown increasingly suspicious of the tension at the palace. While Adanna remained focused on her heartbreak, Emeka couldn't shake the feeling that something sinister was happening behind the scenes. "Adanna, listen to me," Emeka urged as they sat by the river. "I don't trust your sister. I've seen the way she looks at you, the way she manipulates your father. She's up to something, and I fear it's dangerous." Adanna, still reeling from her father's decision, tried to dismiss Emeka's concerns. "Precious is jealous, yes, but she wouldn't do anything to harm me. She's just upset because I'm the rightful heir," Adanna replied. But Emeka wasn't convinced. He had seen the cunning look in Precious's eyes and knew that she would stop at nothing to claim the throne for herself. "Adanna, promise me you'll be careful." While Adanna tried to hold on to hope that her sister would not betray her, Precious was solidifying her deadly alliance with Elizabeth. The two women met late at night in a secluded part of the village, far from prying eyes. Elizabeth introduced Precious to Agatha, a powerful and feared witch from the neighboring kingdom of Apama. Agatha had long been known for her dark magic and willingness to carry out deadly rituals for the right price. "Princess Precious," Agatha hissed as she eyed the young royal, "I hear you seek to claim the throne." Precious nodded, her heart racing with anticipation. "Yes, and my sister Adanna stands in my way. I need her gone. Can you help me?" Agatha smiled, her eyes gleaming with malice. "For a price, of course. But be warned, Princess, dark magic comes with a cost. Are you willing to pay it?" Precious hesitated for only a moment before nodding. "I'll do whatever it takes." Agatha explained the ritual in chilling detail. to turn King James completely against Adanna and ensure that Precious would inherit the throne. A powerful spell would be cast on the king. But it required a sacrifice, 2 human lives. Precious shuddered at the thought but knew there was no turning back. Who must die? She asked, her voice trembling. Agatha chuckled darkly. 2 of your palace guards will suffice. Lure them to me, and I will take care of the rest. That night, Precious returned to the palace with a cold determination. She handpicked 2 of the guards who had served her family faithfully for years. With a sweet smile and honeyed words, she convinced them to accompany her on a secret mission to secure the kingdom. The guards, loyal and trusting, followed her without question, unaware that they were walking toward their deaths. When they arrived at Agatha's lair, the guards were slaughtered without mercy, their lives sacrificed to secure Precious's dark victory. The next morning, the spell began to take effect. King James woke up feeling unusually weak and disoriented. Precious, pretending to be concerned for her father's health, brought him breakfast, lacing his food with the final ingredient of Agatha's spell. As the king ate, his mind slowly began to warp. The love and trust he had once felt for Adanna began to fade, replaced by doubt, suspicion, and a growing anger. By the end of the day, King James had completely turned against his eldest daughter. He summoned his most trusted warriors, the feared Oshomaris, and gave them a chilling order: find Princess Adanna. Arrest her for treason and bring her back to me, alive or dead. The Oshomaris, loyal to the king without question, set out immediately, ready to carry out their deadly mission. Precious watched from the shadows, her heart filled with triumph. Soon, the throne would be hers.
If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon for more amazing tales. Join our growing community by subscribing and sharing your favorite part of today's story in the comments.